nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, thanks for joining us. Alberta is changing its response to COVID-19. Dr. Dina Hinshaw says as of July 29th, the province has scrapped isolation requirements for close contacts of positive COVID cases, and contact tracers will no longer be calling close contacts of those who've tested positive for the virus. And the province will no longer be doing asymptomatic testing. Beginning August 16th, if you do test positive, you won't be required to isolate. Instead, it'll just be recommended that you stay home until you feel better. Hinshaw says with a vaccine readily available, the need for extraordinary restrictions used in the past has diminished.
As I've said many times, COVID-19 is not something we have to fear, but it is something we need to respect, and we will continue to do so. These changes are a necessary step forward, one that will let us keep supporting those who become severely ill, but also help us care for those who get sick from the flu or other viruses. I want to be clear that COVID is not over. COVID-19 is still a serious virus, and it can have life-threatening consequences. And it is now primarily infecting people who don't have their vaccine, who are the minority of those who are eligible.
Thanks to investments from the federal government, Alberta is offering $45 million to further support families earning up to $90,000 with their child care costs. Eligible families will receive $125 per month to help with fees for child care. Previously, subsidy funding was only available for licensed daycare, family day home, and out-of-school care programs. The province says it will also direct over $4 million to provide wage top-ups for early childhood educators. $10 a day childcare negotiations, however, are still ongoing between the UCP and Ottawa.
So our request to the federal government is give us the flexibility to respect parental choice when it comes to childcare. Don't tell us there's only one way or the highway, and that way for them is 8 to 4 urban union-run daycare centers. That only addresses the needs of about 20% of parents. So we don't think that's good enough. We're more ambitious to support all parental choices.
Well, I think the sticking point, unfortunately, is that Jason Kenney is deeply out of touch with regular Alberta families who are struggling to raise their children while paying all the other bills at the same time. And as a result, he's letting his very, very blinkered, old-fashioned ideology get in the way of making a decision that will help Alberta's economy, help Alberta's job creators, help women, help families overall, and heaven forbid, actually create better learning and care conditions in many cases for our kids.
Alberta Premier Jason Kenney and Finance Minister Travis Toews were in southern Alberta this week to discuss the current state of the Alberta economy. While visiting Lethbridge, Kenney also addressed the ongoing negotiations with the nurses union in our province. Micah Quinn has the details.
The potential of a 4% pay cut for Alberta healthcare workers is currently being negotiated in our province. Alberta Finance Minister Travis Toews says the province has economic and fiscal realities to deal with.
Alberta can no longer afford to be an outlier. We can no longer afford to be spending $10 billion more per year on a per capita basis. And so we're working to thoughtfully and carefully, compassionately bring our costs of delivering government services down to be in line with other provinces.
NDP finance critic and Lethbridge West MLA Shannon Phillips says it's unfair to Alberta's healthcare workers to throw this 4% pay cut at their feet, especially when Albertans are just coming out of a pandemic.
This reveals a fundamental failure of priorities. No wonder Albertans do not trust his leadership on either the economy or the management of the pandemic. It's mean-spirited, it is unnecessary, and fundamentally reflects a massive disrespect for our healthcare system and everyone who needs to use it.
Premier Kenney says his party was elected to focus on jobs, the economy, and pipelines. He says the party will continue to implement these goals moving forward.
Here's the reality. We have a $16 billion deficit. We've been running massive deficits for a decade. We can't continue to do that. And this government will not raise taxes to pay for that overspending. We're asking everybody to play some small part in operating more efficiently. And I think that's what taxpayers expect. I know that some people don't share those views, and they can express that, and they certainly will at the ballot box in the next election.
Negotiations are still ongoing between the province and unions for the healthcare sector. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
We need to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more. Stay with us. Welcome back. The leader of the People's Party of Canada made his rounds to southern Alberta last Sunday to speak and listen to community members' concerns of the current Liberal government and to share his party's goals if an election were to be called in October. Carson Marzouk has more on what PPC leader Maxime Bernier brings to the table.
The leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier, was in Lethbridge on Sunday meeting with Southern Albertans to hear their concerns about current issues they have with the Liberal government and changes he hopes to make if elected.
I think they appreciate that we have a comprehensive platform that will be sure that we'll have a smaller government in Ottawa that will respect our freedoms and won't interfere in provincial jurisdiction.
A major point Bernier touched on and heard from his supporters about was the COVID-19 lockdowns that much of Canada has seen over the past 17 months.
We are the only federal national political party that is against these draconian lockdowns, for freedom of choice, for the vaccine, against a mask mandate. And I think for people it's important. And I told them that we must fight for our freedoms.
Several dozen supporters gathered near Henderson Lake to share their thoughts and concerns. Bernier adds if an election is to be called in October, him and his team are ready to lead Canada.
We will have a full slate of candidates before the 1st of September, so every Canadian will have the opportunity to vote for the PPC, to vote for their values.
Lethbridge PPC riding candidate Kimmy Hovan says her goal is to bring awareness of the party to Lethbridge.
My goal is to spread the word for the PPC, for people to understand that there is another voice that is out there to express freedoms and our rights, to stand up for those that don't feel they have a voice.
In 2018, Bernier left the Conservative Party of Canada to sit as an independent MP and announced the launch of the PPC party. Bernier says both the Liberals and Conservatives can't be trusted.
Erin O'Toole and the Liberals are the same. That's why I call them the LibCon party. They're the same on Paris Accord. They will impose a carbon tax. They're the same on the equalization formula. They won't solve that. And they're the same about mass immigration. It's always more and more and more. For them, they won't speak about the truth and the big issues that we are having in this country.
Following his time in Lethbridge, Bernier also made stops in both Taber and Medicine Hat on Sunday. For Bridge City News, I'm Carson Marzouk.
Alberta Environment and Parks Minister Jason Nixon was in southern Alberta's Lethbridge County to announce provincial funding to the tune of over $28 million for a new renewable fuel facility. As Micah Quinn reports, this new initiative will buy more than $375 million worth of local feedstocks from farmers.
The Technology, Innovation, and Emissions Reduction Fund is helping to create a new facility through the company Canary Biofuels.
So what we're doing at the facility is we're upgrading the facility so we can handle all different types of feedstocks, including used cooking oil, off-grade types of canola oil, animal fats from renderers, distillers corn oil that comes out of the ethanol refineries. So we're adding a chemical train, a distillation column, and some unique technology in the middle that helps allow us to have a really high efficiency in terms of taking all that feedstock and converting it into biodiesel and glycerin.
$500 million will be generated in revenue throughout the facility, and it will also cut down on 224,000 tons of emissions per year.
This facility will support up to 130 local jobs, getting our construction workers, engineers, lab technicians, and plant operators back to work when it is needed most. This facility will be the first of its kind in Canada, with its flagship facility right here in Alberta.
The Alberta government committed $750 million for emissions reductions through the Tier Fund, which will support around 9,000 jobs and put in $1.9 billion into the Alberta economy.
But overall, to the county, it's just a positive thing. It's just great to have another industry come in and one that also reduces the emissions. So hopefully these products could be used in farm machinery and help all over. I mean, anytime you could reduce emissions, that's the way to go. But for all of us, it's just a great benefit.
The facility is expected to be up and running by October of this year. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Alberta Health says 71 cases of COVID-19 were likely acquired at the Calgary Stampede, where more than 500,000 people attended the 10-day event. Government officials say so far it was not a significant driver in rising infections across the province. Alberta has around 1,200 active cases, with just over 60% located in the Calgary zone. One doctor who advised the Stampede says the new cases acquired at the Stampede represent less than 10% of the province's new cases. Coming up, we hear about some inspiring research to stop the spread of hepatitis B, and it's happening right here in Alberta. Keep it right here. Welcome back. For the past year and a half, we've been hearing so much about the COVID virus that we sometimes forget there are many other nasty viruses in this world that need to be cured, like hepatitis B, for example. In fact, 350 million people are affected by the Hep B virus worldwide, and it's the leading cause of other diseases like liver cancer. Well, some inspiring research is taking place at one of Alberta's post-secondary institutions, including finding a way to prevent hepatitis B from spreading. In a previously recorded interview, I chatted with protein biochemistry researcher Malik Badmalia, who explains how his team at the University of Lethbridge is finding a way to keep Hep B from spreading and how they even have a patent out for their work.
This is a very sneaky virus. It infects the body and it hides inside the body. So when they give you the conventional treatment, over the period of time, the doctors will be like, wow, you're just cured. You don't have hepatitis B virus. But there will be like one particle sitting in your liver or somebody else, the patient's liver. And it will decide that now it's my turn and I'll just replicate. And it just replicates and the infection relapses. On an estimate, 250 million people are afflicted by hepatitis B virus, and it is the leading cause of liver cirrhosis and liver cancer. The worst part is that it is easily transmitted by body fluids as well as from mother to neonates. We have a vaccine which is effective and a treatment that stops the transfer of this virus to babies. But what about the 250 million people that are already infected about it? So therapy is needed. Viruses are very smart beings. They hijack your entire system to do their own bidding. And it's essentially interactions of proteins with proteins. So what I am studying is basically interaction of human proteins with viral genome. So if we are able to block the interaction of human proteins with viral genome, the virus cannot replicate or multiply and spread the infection. So that is what the underlying basis is of the hepatitis B virus research that takes place over here.
So how, with your research, how is it going to block that? What's it going to do?
So there is this one specific protein called SP1, and it interacts with the viral genome. So what we are doing is we have developed a panel of molecules which stop this interaction of SP1 with human genome. And we have attained a patent of this particular molecules, and now we are moving forward with that.
Interesting. You know, it's funny, the world is so focused right now on virus, particularly the COVID virus, right? But we tend to forget there's other viruses out there that are very dangerous. And so it's fascinating, the work that you're doing. Now, my understanding is that you guys are starting up a company, there's a patent in place. So let's talk a little bit about that.
So the purpose of this company is to bring out the research from the lab into a more democratic forum so that the investors, the industries can identify it, give us more funding to push it forward into a more useful direction.
Okay, and once it's there, and once the funding is there, and you can push it forward, how will it help people that have these illnesses? Is it going to be in the form of a pill, a vaccine, a medicine?
So this is probably, it's going to be an intravenous injection kind of a thing.
Okay.
And it would be injected, and it would go and it would find those all hidden viruses and just target them. So the conventional therapy blocks the virus from multiplying, but it does not find the hidden virus. Our therapy would find that hidden virus and just block it from, so the source itself would be blocked.
That's amazing. It amazes me what the young minds are up to. Thanks so much for the work that you do.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, it's hard to believe that it was just one little virus that brought the world to a standstill, and there are still millions of them out there that need to be contained. I just love hearing about the work those young, bright minds are doing to help make the world a better place. Up next, looking to head to the great outdoors this long weekend? Well, we'll tell you about some great Alberta escapes.
Turtle Mountain never gets old for me. I love that you look down on the Frank slide. You see the big cracks in the mountain.
With the long weekend upon us, you might be thinking about heading to the great outdoors, especially if you're visiting Alberta this weekend. There are many beautiful spots the province has to offer. Well, if you need some ideas of where to go, I have a couple of guests who can help you along the way. Eric Bremer is with the Chinook Outdoor Club, and Heather Davis is from Uplift Adventures. Both are outdoor adventure guides. Eric, let's start with you. Give us a quick snapshot of what the Chinook Outdoor Club is exactly.
The Chinook Outdoor Club has actually we're having our 50th birthday this year. So we've been around for 50 years already. And essentially what we do is we organize trips to the mountains or elsewhere every weekend of the whole year. In the summer, we usually even get a couple every weekend. And yeah, that's about it. That's our core purpose.
So it's all about the hiking. Well, there are some beautiful hikes in the province, of course. So which hikes would you recommend for newcomers or visitors to Alberta this summer?
We do have a wonderful place called Waterton Park. Castle Park is another great place to go to. You go up to the ski hill, and they have a lovely hike back there, Hague Lake. I think it's fairly well signed, and it's really quite a nice place to get to. Drywood Falls is another one that's maybe a little harder to find, but again, you follow the links, and it's only 4 kilometers, fairly flat, some nice falls. You can put your feet in the creek. So another area that's less busy and still quite a great area to get to.
Okay, so Eric, how can hikers utilize the Chinook Outdoor Club if they want to check out a new hike? What do they have to do?
For our club, basically, it's kind of the way we work it is you actually become a member through our website. I think it's $15 a year. And then you can download what our hikes are for the next month, and you decide, oh, I want to go on that one. And then the night before, so whatever, you sort of contact whoever's leading it, and away you go from that.
Yeah, so easy peasy, sounds simple enough. Now, Heather, let me turn it over to you. What would you tell someone who isn't a big hiker but wants to get into it?
I quite often work with beginners as well. And so I try to encourage people to try with a small objective and to not just look at distance, but to look at elevation. So if they, I run these women beginner series, and we do 3.5 kilometers and 150 meters elevation gain, right? And it's about that ends up being 2 hours of hiking. So it is easy, but that's where I would start someone if they're unsure about their physical ability and unsure like what they're capable of. I'd just start them on a small objective, and then you can grow from there, right?
So, what's your favorite hike in the province, Heather?
Turtle Mountain like never gets old for me. I love that you look down on the Frank slide. You see like the big cracks in the mountain was just amazing, and seeing just like the impact that the Frank slide had on the landscape below is pretty fascinating. And you see the Great Divide, you see the prairies, you see all of these different viewscapes from the top of Turtle Mountain, and then you have the history component.
So, besides hiking, what are some other great activities you would maybe recommend for someone wanting to explore Alberta?
This year I paddled the Milk River, and that was really cool. It's not something you would do later in the summer, and it is technical. So, you would want to go into it with some knowledge, but it was a 3-day canoe trip. And we went down from Milk River down to Writing on Stone, and that was absolutely stunning. And then, we have the Frank Slide, which is becoming a very hot spot for bouldering, which is climbing without rope, basically. Activities that I like are obviously hiking and scrambling and climbing, and I like all of it. There's tons of caving around Crow's Nest Pass. Crow's Nest Pass has world-class caving, some through Gargantua and Cleft Cave, and there's just a huge number of caves in the Flathead Range, which a lot of people don't realize. I mean, Crow's Nest Pass is this outdoor mecca of amazing activities to do. The mountain biking is incredible, the fly fishing, and obviously the hiking and scrambling, which is what I'm super passionate about. And climbing is growing here, but it's still not like a huge thing yet, but it's growing.
Wow, some great advice on where to head this long weekend. Thanks so much for joining me, you two. Well, coming up after the break, we bring you some of the top stories from around southern Alberta. Stay with us. The body of a man who went missing on June 20th was found last weekend by Alberta Fish and Wildlife. The Crow's Nest Pass RCMP received a report of human remains which were discovered in a rural area. As Micah Quinn explains, the family wants answers now.
Candles were lit for lame tail feathers as a large group of family and friends came to pay their respects for the brother, father, and friend.
He just got into the wrong stuff at the wrong time, wrong place, wrong time. And, he was, other than that, great guy, always happy, kind, really kind to my children, a loving guy, and I'm going to miss him, that's my warrior, that's my homie. I love him, I miss him, you guys.
The word that was repeated many times at the vigil was justice. Justice for tail feathers and his family.
We just want answers. We want justice for our brother, and we're going to get justice. I feel we're going to get justice.
And I'm glad we found him the other day and that we can have a proper burial for him. And I love him a lot because we're his only 2 kids, and he loved us, the only people that we love. And he had a lot of problems too, and he was hurting deep down, and he told me that he was hurting deep down. And I'm glad he's in a better place because he was battling his addiction, and that he has no problems ever. He's somewhere safe. I'm glad he's safe.
The death of tail feathers has been deemed suspicious, and the Alberta RCMP Major Crimes Unit has taken over the investigation. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
An incident involving a Lethbridge police officer getting shot by a suspect using an airsoft pistol could have unfolded very differently last Thursday had officers decided to return fire. According to the criminal code, if an officer perceives an imminent threat to themselves or the public, they can draw their weapons and fire back. Acting Inspector Pete Christos, who is in charge of the Criminal Investigation Division at LPS, recounts the split-second decisions surrounding how this incident unfolded.
The officer relayed that shots were fired. He took cover, and subsequently this individual threw the weapon away and was taken into custody. Did he feel that it was a real weapon at the time? I can tell you that I don't know what the officers was thinking at the time. That's a very dynamic situation, and these officers make a split-second decision in how they're responding. Now, I would tell you that because the officer took cover immediately, of course, looked at to where he felt getting hit and didn't see that there was any injury to him. He realized that it was an airsoft pistol at that time. We deal with things in the moment, and unfortunately, there are times where our officers are making split-second decisions, and so, of course, subject to public scrutiny at times, but we're very well trained, and I'm glad that this situation turned out the way it did.
Dale Lear is the latest candidate to announce he's running for a seat on Lethbridge City Council this fall. One of Lear's main goals, if elected, is to provide more capital spending for the Lethbridge Airport, which he says has been managed poorly since the city took it over from the county.
But the problem is, the way it's structured right now, the ability to be able to fund improvement, growth, set up a proper marketing program and stuff isn't there. So the city has in fact paid an enormous amount of money for numerous studies for many, many, many years. And one of the recommendations was that they adopt a different governance model. And they've never ever gotten around to that. So although they have put some more money into maintenance and a few things like that, it's still languishing compared to what other airports are doing where they have a proper governance model.
Lear says he will also focus on economic development to be able to fund projects in our city while also bringing down the tax rate for Lethbridge residents. When you head to the polls this October for the municipal election, City Council voted to add another question to the ballot regarding whether the city should prioritize plans for a possible third traffic bridge over the Old Man River. Mayor Chris Bierman says if the city ended up footing the entire bill, property taxes could increase 13%.
To this point, people have to recognize that the third bridge would be entirely within the city of Lethbridge, so it would not be a provincial bridge like Highway 3. So different provincial governments over time have said that bridge is entirely the cost to the city of Lethbridge, in other words, to city of Lethbridge taxpayers. But if we had a referendum that had strong support for a third bridge, what provincial government who wanted to win seats in this city in the future could say, we're not going to fund a third bridge in the city of Lethbridge?
Up next, we speak with one of our mayoral candidates who explains why he wants your vote. But first, a quick break.